2, 1.
We're live.
We're live!
Welcome back. Sorry about that, guys.
That's okay.
It wouldn't be an uncanny anything if we didn't end up having some sort of issues. It's just a thing.
Yes. But what were we talking about? Magic.
We were talking about magic and magic being fueled. They can
Sorry,
wait.
that was my phone. They can wait. They can wait. Okay.
We were talking about magic being fueled by desire, which I think that's genius because that is why this goes into like not just historical fiction. It goes into like actual romance because that is also that desire is where that power comes from and where the most explosive power ends up.
The idea they said this. There are two things there are two like main feelings in the world. I don't know where they said this somewhere in the book. Fear and desire.
Mm-hmm.
Most people would say fear and love or fear and hate or something like that. But it makes so much more sense that it's desire because think about everything that has ever happened in the history of the world, from wars to great social movements to the most fabulous love story you could ever hear in your entire life, friendships.
The worst love story you could think of. Like all those weird stalking love stories. Those are also centered in desire.
Tragedy. The greatest things on this earth, all fueled by desire.
Yep.
Here. How cool is that?
I think it works, and I think it works for the romance elements of this story because that's really kind of where all of the threads come together. These two people desire each other and their love is forbidden because it's against the laws of not of nature, it's against the laws that their three factions have decided on, which is even more frustrating because it's like, wait a minute, there's not even like a divine, like some god told us we couldn't do this. No, a bunch of people in the 1970s or the 1700s were like, we will never intermingle, and they're like, okay.
Yeah, so pretty much the demons, witches, and vampires decided we hate each other because you're different from us.
Also, it was a little bit of survival because they were worried if they got together, they would be too powerful and the people would kill them all, which was fair because this was like right after the Middle Ages when, in fairness, the people were killing a lot of them.
That is true. And also the fact that it's said in the story that the more creatures are in one room, the easier it is for the humans to recognize them. Right. So it does make sense because in the book, witch and vampire together do draw a lot of attention.
They do.
Unintentionally, even if they're just walking down the street. So I'm like, makes sense. But also it created these massive prejudices to the point where there's a point where Diana has to go to Matthew's house and meets his mom for the first time. And then Matthew has to go to her aunt's house and meet Diana's aunts for the first time. And both times it is super awkward because no one knows how to feel because they all want to kind of.
They've all been taught to not like each other. They've all been taught to be prejudiced against each other, which I actually I liked this. I liked that element of the two characters just being like, okay, so first of all, this isn't even a question. And if you're going to make it an issue, I'm leaving. Yeah. Because I think that statement that clearly is the kind of statement, it's the kind of hard conversation that more of us, especially white people, wish we could have and wish we had the courage to have with the people that are close to us in situations where it's like, for whatever difficult situation, there are attitudes that need to be confronted in every family. Attitudes of prejudice, attitudes of just bad behavior patterns, all of that. And I think there's something incredibly cathartic in seeing a character just be like, I'm sorry, no, this is how it's going to be.
Yeah.
Do you want me here or not?
Yeah.
You can leave.
No, there were certain things where, like, when Matthew would be like, yeah, they're gonna have to answer for that. They're gonna have to pay for that. Where it's like, oh my God.
You're not putting up with your family's gaslighting? What?
Wait, what? What?
So
So
happened.
question. So you've gotten, obviously, you finished the entire TV series. How does that hold up in the series?
It so in the TV series, I feel like they, in an effort to hit every major plot point in the book, they skip out on a lot of the world building, and they skip out on a lot of the relationship building between the two main characters, which in the book is how we find out about why all these prejudices are there and why they're such a big deal. So
Yeah.
in the show, we see the outrage, but it very unfortunately it comes off, in my opinion, like kind of cardboard. Like I don't, because the work of world building has not been done sufficiently, especially with like when the demons popped up, because I knew there were vampires and witches, but then all of a sudden there was like, oh, and there's also demons, but that was addressed for like 2 seconds, and we were just like, oh, we hate the demons. And also at that point, the demon was the only African American character that had come up. Or sorry, it's in England, so it was the only cast member of color. Period. Was a demon.
Creature member of color, because there was another, the librarian that's her friend is
Yes.
is also African American, or not
Black.
African American, black.
Cast is black.
Uh,
So it was weird for me for them to just be like, we're dismissing this character entirely, and it's also the only black character, the only substantial black character we've had to date. I was like, okay, I get it. It's like that's not a nuanced way to address it at all. I don't even know what that is, and I don't know why it's important to the story. And then when they met the families, it all felt kind of put on, because they didn't have the weight of the very careful world building that had been done in the book.
That's the thing that I noticed, like, especially just like the introduction. So when it comes to the vampire system, and they talk about mothers and fathers, obviously, if you're a vampire and you've lived for 10 bajillion years, your parents aren't alive. The people who are counted as your parents are the ones who created you. And when we met Isabel in the movie, like there's Matthew's son who looks like he's young enough to be Matthew's son, but it's actually in the book someone he created. And then in the book, his mother actually looks younger than him. Because she was a vampire and younger when she made him.
Yeah.
Versus in the series where his mother looks like she could actually be his mother. And so that was kind of confusing for me, because I'm like, I know in the book how vampire relationships or vampire family trees work, but because it was indistinguishable that these people don't age and that your parents aren't the people who make you, like, at least from that introductory stance, I'm like, wait, so can vampires have babies? And that's a really big thing, that they cannot have babies.
Yep.
And becomes a massive issue at the end.
I honestly, I feel like my two biggest issues with the adaptation to the TV show were the fact that they don't do enough world building in order to earn the prejudice. The prejudice is not earned at all. And then secondly, they don't do enough relationship building to really earn the romance. The romance starts, I think, in episode 2. And I was like, that the book is great in terms of like building how they meet intellectually. The show, I got way more of your creepy guy, he's stalking you, girl, why are you going with him vibes. I was like, no, I don't believe it.
What bugged me is that there is this scene where she makes dinner for the vampire, and it's a really big deal both in the book and they have it in the TV show. and in it they kiss for the first time, and that's a big deal because up to that time they'd just been like intellectual colleagues. The thing that got me that was a lack of world building is the fact that these two actually spent quite a bit of time together before these moments. They got to know each other as colleagues, respect their work, and like talk. Um, even when he was stalking her, but they just like randomly meet up and then suddenly, hey, come to dinner.
This is where I feel like the show tried to bridge too much into the teen romance trope. They're like, obviously they're the love interests, so they just love each other. And I'm like, first of all, that's not how that works. If you're a teenager, it makes sense that you just fall in love with someone because you're young and dumb. That's one of the beauties of those teenage stories. But you also consummate it like immediately. It's like, right there. But this isn't that kind of show. And so if you try to skip the steps of being an adult and having an adult relationship, I don't buy the romance. I just don't.
Plus, in this particular version of the dinner scene in the television show, it's one of those things where, like, in the book, Matthew kisses her because he's got this whole thing where it's a little bit Twilighty in the fact that he can't resist her or whatever. But in the television show, she kisses him and it's bad. He just stays stock still, and I understand what the actor was probably thinking, like, oh, he's resisting because he doesn't want to hurt her or something like that. But he's literally like this the entire time and just completely still while she kisses him, and I'm like, that is sociopath behavior. And then suddenly he comes to save her in the library and now they're in love. What?
Yeah. I also felt like because they skipped all these character development steps with the two characters, I was frustrated that the show felt like it was giving me a female protagonist that was just a damsel in distress.
Yes!
Instead of someone who is intellectually every bit his equal and also probably magically his equal. She just doesn't know where this power is coming from or how to control it. But she is actively trying. But the show took away all of her, really, like, all of her power because she was reduced to not knowing what was going on. She was reduced to being the awkward lover. She was reduced to being like randomly in love with him that made no logical sense. Yeah. I didn't like it.
Yeah, the thing that gets me is I was thinking that as well when I was reading the book. I'm like, they turned her into a damsel in distress, but I realized she wasn't necessarily a damsel in distress. Yes, she didn't know how to use her magic, but she was still incredibly smart and on top of her shit
in the book.
But in the book, we aren't talking about the television show, but Matthew in the book, his behavior, his dominant behavior, his protective behavior, him treating her like a fragile thing, that's one of the things that they say in the book, that Matthew falls in love with warm-blooded women because he likes fragile things. She isn't necessarily fragile in the book. He treats her like she's fragile, and so see her.
They have a conversation to that effect, actually. In the book, she's like, she asks him to take her hunting, which he doesn't want to do because he's worried he will lose control and hurt her, and also I think he's worried that she's going to be like disgusted and not want to be with him anymore. And she's like, okay, do this because you've seen me low. I want to be there for you. You can't treat me like I'm going to break. I'm not. So just let us do this together. We're doing it together. I'm not even really asking. She's basically just like, I'm not even really asking. We're doing this. And she makes him do it and he agrees. And that's one of the moments of their relationship turning from him being a little, he's still very protective, but he at least now respects her as more of an equal. I think, from that point forward.
Yeah, the thing that she doesn't apply to, she's got stereotypical stuff, but she doesn't like entirely apply to a stereotype, because like if someone wants to create a strong independent woman in their book, well, if there's a man trying to be protective or controlling of me, I'm absolutely not gonna allow it. Don't, I'm like,
Yeah.
bleh, getting pissed off at him for, why are you trying to protect me? She doesn't, because she's like,
She's
I
an
allow
adult.
that because I can't protect myself at this moment. I'm very powerful, but I don't know how to do that yet. So yeah, I'm gonna take his protection because that's the smart, logical thing to do.
Right.
And then when it gets to the point near the end of the book where they're in a situation of like immense, grave peril, mortal peril, and Matthew tries to do the gallant thing and tell her, go, run, get out of here. She's like, no, I'm not leaving you. And she uses her badass power shit and kills someone.
Yep.
Yay!
It works. And we don't get those moments of empowerment in the show. It's not, and when we do, it's by accident and not on purpose.
Oh no.
It comes, and I know why it's by accident, because in the book she describes how it's all coming out in her head. And that's hard to translate to the screen. You can't obviously translate thoughts onto a visual medium. But again, they didn't do the character work to make her an active participant in these situations. So when she, by accident, it looks like, calls all this power to her, it just it's not like she's an active participant. It's like she's an emotional participant, and she's afraid that she's going to lose him. So she just reacts, which again diffuses her actual power that's there in the book, which is again also frustrating to me. As I was watching it, I was just like, ugh. It also, and I just have to say this, it also bothered me that the guy that they cast for the vampire dude just looks like one of the doctors from Doctor Who, and not one of the like sexy doctors. He just looks like a normal doctor. And you know what? It's fine. I know that's a type, but it's not the type that's described in the book. It's just not.
No, I literally
described in the book is like young Brad Pitt. Like, I'm sorry. That's what she wrote.
Dude, I thought I was being so shallow when I wrote in my notes. I thought the vampire would be sexier.
I don't know. And it didn't, I'm not gonna lie, it did actually sort of take me out because he's so much older than her. It contributes to the creepy stalker vibe. And I know physically he is older than her, but because she's already a disempowered character in the show, having him be kind of a weird, creepy older guy doesn't help the situation.
Like in the book, Matthew is described as vampire beautiful. If you know, like I said, it's a little
muscular, very tall. They got the very tall. He's very tall.
Yeah, he is very tall. But the thing is he's very, I mean, animalistic the way that he's described. He's got muscles. He's got these instincts. He's a beautiful, logical mind inside this very, I don't want to say bestial, but it's like, it's
no, that's like typographic type physiological. I don't know. That's what his type is,
because he's so tall. He's so tall and so big. People are like, "Ooh, sorry." Continue.
Yeah. No. I think your interpretation of his physicality. There's a reason she wrote him with that specific physicality, and it's because it plays into that he is a wolf. He is an apex predator. Not because he has magic powers, just because he has a body that literally heals itself. Like that's another thing that they kind of don't expressly say in the book, but it's like the logical reason why they are as nice as they are is that their body is automatically just taking care of itself because of their vampire blood.
Yeah, they yeah.
So I felt like that casting was weird. But in the show, I just didn't. It hit all the plot points. It hit all the major plot points, especially in Act 3 of the novel. They basically get all of them.
That's good.
Yeah. So it leads me to think that maybe season 2 is actually much stronger as far as an adaptation goes, and they, go ahead and fill in some of those gaps. Which honestly, I don't know that I would have noticed the gaps as much if I had read the book first. If I had read the book first, I might have noticed the gaps less. But I feel like the love story and the romance would have still fallen short.
Yeah. So what I noticed is that this time, I know I said I was going to watch the television show first and then read the book. I did not. But the thing that I noticed and was impressed by, the first episode, I was like, I don't know, because we know me, I'm a stickler for the details and the matching plot points, but I was surprised at the moments they did cover, or how they took certain things and were able to like condense them. They had to condense a lot of stuff, or turn like the multiple moments on at the boathouse into one moment and still covered the exact same thing. I was like, okay, I don't have problems with this because you aren't changing it, you're just altering it. You're condensing it and altering it so it fits better in this shortened amount of time. So I didn't have issues with that necessarily. There was one thing that they changed. So at the beginning of the book, you hear about. So this is just for all of the characters. So because it's such a big book, and it's a book, there are a bunch of characters that pop up for a little bit and then go away, or they just show up out of the middle of nowhere and then suddenly there's this big bad character who existed before but we haven't met until now. Versus in the TV show, they're literally like introducing every single character possible right off the bat. But Jillian, Juliet, and Satu. So these are all characters that were minor in the book that now they have made much larger. So Jillian was a witch that was tattletaling on Diana. And in the book, they were not friends. Diana did not like her. But in the TV adaptation, they are. And it's hinted that they were fairly close. That switch caught me right off the bat as soon as they walked in, and I was like, I'm not sure I'm gonna like this, because they immediately made the thing the exact opposite of what it was. But I think it also works because it's one of those things that works because it explains how she had so much information on Diana from the start, rather than just staring at her in the library. And also just added that layer of like, you betrayed me, versus like this rando who gets killed later on.
Yeah. The show did, I think, do a good job of building like danger in from the very beginning, which the book does not, because it's doing so much world building.
Yeah.
Which I think they had to do because otherwise they don't have time in acts 2 and 3 really of the story. Like they need to build in some ominous, like, these people coming after you are very powerful and there's a lot of them and all that. I think, I don't know. I think the show might have done a slightly better job of that. Just for better job. It did a good job for a TV show. Like I think that is necessary in a TV show. And they didn't really do disservice to the book because a lot of what happens early on is actually described in conversation later by people when they're like, oh yeah, I met up with him 3 weeks ago, or oh yeah, I got a letter and he said that he was doing this.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad that you brought that up, that idea of danger, because in the book, when Matthew is stalking her, the entire thing is that people are following her to the library where she checked out this manuscript, this magical manuscript, and people are like, how did you get it out? We're just going to sit in the library until you get it out again because no one else can. Say what?
We're gonna stare at you, like just.
Yeah, we're literally just gonna surround you and stare at you and pretend to be reading a book, while you just sit there all day and do not give a fuck about this manuscript for the earliest parts of the book.
Yep.
And so when it talks about Matthew protecting her and then bringing someone else in, Miriam, to also help protect her when he's not there, it's one of those things where it's like, yes, shit could go down, but also like they can't let anything go down because it's in the middle of a human library, in a very heavily populated place, and they're already drawing so much attention from the humans by all being in the same place that it's like, I never believed that she was ever going to get attacked in the library at all, or ambushed or anything.
In the show.
Versus in the movie, they have I really actually dug the scene where she's surrounded by witches in the library and then she goes all.
I really loved how ominous they made the witchy villains in this show. They were really good. And it was a good contrast for like the mental coercion which the witches do versus the physical coercion that the vampires try to do. Like the vampires are all about physical intimidation, and the witches are like, now we're just going to get inside your brain and literally make you think thoughts, which is super creepy. And
yeah,
for a show, like it's a great thing for a story.
I think honestly I really enjoyed. They got Knox right. The main villain, the witch villain, they got him so right in the television show.
I loved all the stuff they added with him.
Yeah.
I thought it was all good.
Oh, yeah, I dig the witchy villain. Honestly, I love the fact that they can like talk to each other in their heads. When it gets to the third act of the book and there are like multiple witches in one house and it's like, oh, you see those ghosts? I see those ghosts too. And it's like they're talking on the same wavelength without having to talk, which is how I expect everyone else's brain to work with mine. I start having a conversation in my head and I expect everyone else to be able to pick up right where I left off, and they can't. And so it was really my dream for how society should be. But yeah, I guess we talked a lot about the beginning of the book, but like shiznit goes down at the end.
It does, all very rapidly, and then it becomes completely unresolved because they Misty step out to a different time, and
yeah,
we just have a whole new thing.
Yeah, no, I'm very intrigued about what the next book / next season entails, because they legit like left a massive shit show and all of these people behind and are like, toodles.
Well, but they're time traveling, so they can come right back to the same time. In theory, if she can do it.
Can't they? I hope so. I mean, it was so the really something really fun in the book is, LOL, it's called The Discovery of Witches, and a lot of the book is spent discovering things.
Yeah.
Stupid. But Diana's powers
are really cool. She's basically like a dark phoenix. Like really, that's what I'm getting. Like an elemental dark phoenix.
Yeah, the thing so with the witchy DNA, he's a DNA dude, right? Matthew's all about the genetics. And Diana has this magic she can't control. She doesn't know why it's happening. and it kind of just like puffs out of her randomly. Well, they find out that her magic, not spells, she don't do no spells, she does magic, because her magic only comes out when she needs it. Which I think is so freaking cool. I thought that was an excellent idea. I'm like, that makes so much sense to me. But Matthew, being Matthew, reads her DNA and is like, oh shit. So, by the way, your DNA says you can do fire and earth and water and talk to dead people and tell time and walk through time and da 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 da. And it just keeps going on. All of these anomalies, like she's a chimera, like she absorbed her twin at birth. It's like all this insane stuff. And normally I would be like, this is improbable. This is ridiculous. Are you kidding me? You're going to tell me that she has all this and more that you keep adding in? But the more that they added, I was just like, yes, give it to me. What else can she do?
I also think they did a really good job of, in the book at least, I feel like it was a little more slapdash in the show. But I'd give it a B+ in the show for explaining the genetics of it. They go so much into the theory of the genetics and what they've been thinking about and what they've been tracking. When they finally are like, we think you have all these because you're the nexus of all of these bloodlines. Dude, that makes sense for genetics. It does. It's just that normally when you get someone that is basically a mutant, which is what they're describing, usually that thing dies. So there's something keeping her alive, but the genetics work.
Love.
No, it's desire.
Desire. Yes.
Which, okay, brings me to the comparison that I wanted to do with this show and Bridgerton. Because they are the same, they are very similar genres. They are cousin genres, if not the same genre. Because both of them have this overarching romance. Both of them are built in a fantasy world. This fantasy world obviously has to do with like magic and witches and demons and whatnot. And then the Bridgerton fantasy world is literally a world where racism as we know it today does not exist. Which is wonderful to see. Like it's really cool and just like freeing, because you're like, man, I kind of wish that our problems could all just be like, who am I gonna marry?
It's got Schitt's Creek vibes where it's like, what if people were just like not awful entirely? Exactly. Like, listen, we're talking, there's some awful people in Bridgerton. Like, that dude deserves to get his lights.
That's true, but he does get his lights punched. Like, yeah, awful in Bridgerton, they all get the just desserts. And so it's a different kind of fantasy world, but it's still a fantasy world. This version of Great Britain never existed. It did not. But it's a beautiful setting, and it's a very aspirational sort of story, which I think is something that we all need. And it's one thing that both of these shows have in common is that they're both very straightforward. They're not cynical about the love that's happening. I do not think that The Discovery of Witches executed their romance very well, but they're not cynical about it. They really believe in it. Bridgerton executed that romantic relationship perfectly, especially season 2. In my opinion, season 2 of Bridgerton executes the romance even better and in a more nuanced way than the first one.
That's what everyone's saying. I just started on season 1. I am late. I've been binging it, but everyone's like, season 2 is so perfect. I can't wait.
Well, so it's okay. So I won't spoil it for you, except there's a wedding at the end. You know that's happening, right?
Yes, there always is.
It's a Bridgerton show. But they take their darn sweet time getting there, and they let the characters, they let the lovers make choices about getting there. Destiny doesn't have anything to do with it. Animal attraction only has some things to do with it. It is a choice that they make that costs both of them something. And that is something that is so true and honest and resonant, that you would have someone who loves you enough to, and who desires you enough to give up other things that they desire, to be like, I want you instead. I want you even without all that. And that part, that thing of like, I love you enough in order to give up other things, is not really in Discovery of Witches.
No, they do the exact opposite. And that's something that I noticed. There's always that, and even Isabel tells Diana to do the thing of like, if you love him, let him go. And they're like,
no.
nope.
And that's where I think the you don't get the conflict in the Discovery of Witches of like, I have two conflicting desires. Like in Bridgerton, this whole season's theme is I want to do what's good for my family, and I also love this person. Which is a real, that's not a fool's choice. That's not like, I want money, but I also like this person. Nah. No, it's, I want to help my family. I love my sisters. I love my brothers. I love my mother. I want to do what's right for them. Versus, I have feelings for this person, and I don't think that that is the best thing for my family. Whereas in A Discovery of Witches, it's literally just, there are rules that say we can't do this, and the rules are stupid. Because the rules are stupid. The rules are dumb. The rules were thought up in the, in a different century.
Yeah.
They don't really apply anymore, especially since all these species are dying. It's not like there's going to be all of a sudden thousands of vampire babies running around. There can't even be vampire babies. So just calm down.
I don't know if we specified this in particular, but there's like this whole council, they call it the congregation, who it's 3 witches, 3 vampires, 3 demons that came together and made a covenant that was like, hey, none of us are gonna intermingle or marry or date or anything. And so the fact that the vampire and the witch kiss, it was a big problem. And then they get vampire married.
Right. Well, but they're not bucking anything other than a system that nobody likes. Yeah. Nobody likes the system. But there's no stakes to that. Right? You're just going to root for them to do it. Whereas if you have something where if you have the dilemma created in Bridgerton, now you have real personal drama for these characters and real personal stakes beyond just, am I going to survive? Mm-hmm. And survival is fine, but without the emotional stakes behind it, survival is kind of hollow. It's very ethereal, especially in a society like we have today. Like, we read about people dying all the time. Genuinely. It's survival. We don't have a good connection to the existential crisis of survival. We do not. And if your book isn't primarily about survival doesn't work for your stakes. I think I just made that up, but I think I stand by that statement.
I'll take it. But here's the thing that I'm wondering, because I see this trope in a lot of romance novels where it's like, we want to be together, but we can't be together. Versus, like, I think Discovery of Witches stands out because it's like, we want to be together, so we're gonna be together. And it's not the kind of like, they, at least in the book, the way that they read it, it's not, listen, Diana does have one like moment of, girl, really, when she first tells Matthew that she loves him, because she like breaks down in the middle of the great hall in the chateau. I love you, I don't care, I love you. Blah. And I went,
girl, calm down.
Girl, please, you are better than this. Get up off your knees. No, absolutely not. But they don't do this sort of sappy, oh, what do we do? Oh, we can't. They never waver on the moment of if they're going to be together or not. even though they are considering the fact that they don't want their family to be hurt, but they're like, they don't waver and they don't mule over it and they don't, oh, but what if, like, it's just set in stone that they're, and I'm wondering which is more realistic
I think
for society today. If when it comes to a conflict, are people just going to be like that straightforward, well, fuck that, or if they would do that, if you love me, let me go.
I don't know if you have any friends who've been in bad relationships, but inevitably my friends in bad relationships are like, we're gonna do this no matter what. And everybody around them is like, you might want to wait for just a second. Maybe just hold on. So I think in real life, you very much have people who are just like, we're doing this. And sometimes it works. But here's the thing. If you have a relationship that has grown organically with two freaking adults, and after their relationship has grown, then they say, we're doing this no matter what, which is what happens in the Bridgerton show. Their relationship grows progressively with choice after choice that shows each other what their values are and shows each other what their actual character is. Choice after choice after choice. So when they finally say, no, it's you and I pick you no matter what, we're like, yes, you earned it. If you just start out with, I saw you across the room in the library and we're destined for each other and it's you no matter what, I don't believe it. I don't believe it because I know people who have done that and they are divorced 2 years later, or they have broken up 6 months later, and it was dramatic and it was traumatic for everybody around them.
Okay, number one, I'm going to give it up to you now that you mentioned the poor relationship. I do want to list off the red flags that are in that relationship.
Wait, in which one?
But number two, do you know what made me so mad? Is that, okay, so throughout the entire thing, like throughout the entire first interaction with each other, they're like,
in A Discovery of Witches, in the TV
show. Not in the TV show.
In the book?
In the book, because I just keep talking about the book, because I just don't care about the TV show.
Fair.
But there is tension there. Like, Diana is not, even though he's pretty, she's like, he could be potentially incredibly dangerous. She is aware of that. She keeps him around because she's like, I think that these other people are more dangerous, pose more of a threat than him, but she's still very aware. She does not trust him. It takes time for them to grow into that. It isn't, Matthew doesn't give off the vibe of like he's into her until he gives off the vibe that he's into her.
It's actually a while, which I liked. Yeah. I really liked that about the show. He's initially just like, I want the knowledge you have, and also I'm worried about you because you don't understand how dangerous these people are.
Yeah.
I wish more people would make that choice. More men should make that choice. Like, I'm not going to get in your way, but also I see these dangerous people around you, and I am going to be there to put myself in the way if you get in trouble.
Yeah.
That's very positive.
But they go back on that shit because after they admit, oh, I'm in love with you, oh, I'm in love with you, they do the cheesy romance thing of, I fell in love with you when I nearly hit you with an oar, and I fell in love with you the minute you grabbed a book in the library, and it's like, literally, that's the first minute you saw her.
Did you?
You did not. You did not, though. You did not love him.
And we know this because we're in your head, because we were in your head in the book.
Yes! And that's
yeah.
Can we list off the red flags about their relationship, though? Though if it was in real life, if you were Diana's best friend on the phone over in like Connecticut or whatever, and she was telling you about this sexy, sexy man she came across, number one, oh my god, it's like so cute. He just like follows me around. to the library and when I go rowing and
He showed up at the rowing place and he was like, it's super dangerous. Anything could happen to you here. You're all alone. You're like, you're thinking of dangerous things happening to me right by the lake?
yeah,
Where we're all alone?
yeah. Yeah.
You didn't bring a buddy? You're
Yeah.
just here by yourself at 5:30 in the morning? Also, we do find out later he sneaks into her room and wants her sleeping, which is also
Red
very
flag
creepy.
Red flag number 2.
Trespassing. Red flag number 2. Trespassing.
Stalking and trespassing. Both red flags. Let's see what else. Gets very protective, which is great until, you know, he kills someone, like literally shoots the messenger, brutally murders someone because they were a part of delivering a threat. And it's like, ooh, that's a red flag. Also, like, notice that everyone in their family is like, both sides of the family are like, you have known each other for a few weeks.
Red flag number 4. You've only known each other for
slow down. They're like, no.
I kind of want to go back to your anger point because that is mentioned several times in the book and it is just glossed over. And I think that that is a very interesting trait that we give to men that can be shown as like, ooh, he is protecting you. He is defending you. However, I feel like that's a real tight knife edge to walk because so many relationships that start out that way, if anger really is the primary thing, emotion guiding him, that anger doesn't always get turned outwards. That anger gets turned to you, and it is not healthy. And
Yeah.
it's a weird flame to play with. Vampires are a weird flame to play with. Like, they're dangerous creatures. So I'm not overly concerned about its representation in here. But if we're talking about red flags and you're trying to make, like, as a writer or a creator, trying to make a sexy character, making a character motivated by anger is one of the most, like, dangerous things you can do. And if you're wanting to make your character into somebody that can be really, really, like, turn on a dime to be your villain, go with anger. Go with anger as that, like, primary driving fire, and you'll get some really interesting places, I think.
See, but what's interesting is the fact that he has anger issues. Serious anger issues. To the point where it's like, get my wife's name out your motherfucking mouth. That sort, but murder. So very different.
Not at all the same thing.
Not at all the same thing, but also he would scream that across the room.
He would.
He would. But very different. Well, I'm not saying that's the same. Very different situations. It was just the pop culture reference that popped into my head. But yeah, big anger issues, but he never ever lashes out at Diana. Now he does get frustrated with her, like there is an occasional growl, but as soon as he starts feeling anger or frustration, he immediately recognizes it, checks himself, and cares more about protecting her, telling her you need to leave the room.
Or he leaves, or he removes himself.
Or he removes himself, which
which is a great balance to that red flag. So you have a very authentic character, I think, there with someone very what?
Self-aware.
Yes, which is good, I think, in terms of the romance, because when you're creating a character to be in that romance, you want the character to have some kind of danger because that's like titillating and it's like fun for the audience to be like, ooh, is it dangerous or not? But you don't actually want your character in the character that's in love to be in danger from the person they're in love with. Because otherwise you're getting into a whole different genre of romance that is very tricky.
Cough, cough, Twilight.
Well, I'm actually thinking more in terms of like the weirdness that was like 50 Shades.
Oh my God.
Which isn't even like, that's not even representative of like people who are into kink and into BDSM and whatnot. It's just a weird abusive relationship.
Yeah.
That is Twilight fan fiction, so the tie-in totally works there.
Hey. No, it's interesting how, because I'm 100% like rom-coms and cheesy, the occasional cheesy romance novel I can appreciate, but also they make me want to barf. And so
when we get to the end of this, I'm going to recommend a couple of romance novels to everybody, and you have to promise me that you will not let your mother read these, and also don't tell anybody that I recommended them, because
yes, I love that.
Continue.
I love that. Okay, I'm very excited.
Because yeah, if you're into romance novels and you're like, I don't need the cheesy romance novels, I got you.
Here's the thing, is this book, like I said, rode the right kind of line for me. And the fact that the characters were so smart and logical, that I was willing to forgive them when they became irrational because of love.
Yes. Because we do also know that happens too, even to the smartest people.
Even to the smartest people, that happens. And it wasn't.
But you have to establish that they're smart first before they do stupid things, which again does not happen in the show. They do stupid things before we establish that they are smart and mature. And now I'm just like, oh, you're both idiots.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Vampire, who's 500, 600, 700 years old. You should know better. Sorry.
There was, but there was like, I'm thinking in this show about the things, or in the show, in the book, that were things that typically I would hate.
Like
they're like the overly controlling, overly protectiveness, how when they are at his ancestral home, Isabel literally tells her, he is the general, he is the leader, you are not on his equal plane, because he is the apex predator.
Why do you think it works in this particular story? Because I'm with you. Typically that stuff, I'm like, nope.
Oh, when she got branded with his mark, like,
but no,
oh my God.
Why do you think that protectiveness, why do you think that controlling works? Because I think there's a good story reason why it works in this context and it doesn't in some others.
So, like I said at the beginning, with the general protectiveness before they fall in love, I think it's a very smart choice on her part. And the fact that she's like, I will allow it because I actually need it. When it gets to the more romantic bits and his incredible possessiveness, I'm not sure that it's like, this is a good reason, but she understands the logic behind it, which is what gets me, is the fact that she's not like, how dare he try and protect me. She's like, he's protecting me like a wolf. This is literally in his nature.
So I think the reason that we have it working is because it starts with him protecting her before he is actually in love with her. So this is just a character trait of him. He protects people who he thinks is in danger. That is why he becomes attracted to things that are fragile, but he protects things that he thinks are going to be in danger. He fell in love with her later. If he had started out with, I see her, she has magic, she's mine, now we have a weird possessive relationship where he's manipulating her into falling in love with him. But that's not what happened. he becomes very possessive of her as their relationship grows, which makes sense. That happens when she becomes possessive of him.
Yeah.
And she pushes back on some of the like relic patriarchy stuff that he has.
Yeah.
Like, you're the general, and she's like, what do you mean? I don't think I'm going to do that. She's just like, I'm not going to do it. And he's like, okay.
My chopped liver here? Like, what do
So I think that's it. I think the author here got the order correct. So we have the basis of a healthy relationship instead of the basis of a creepy relationship.
Oh, and the other thing is that he is very much invested in her protecting herself.
Yes.
He is not set on I'm going to protect you always. He is very much invested in getting her training and getting her magic all built up so that she can still protect herself even when he's not there. And in addition to that, at the end of the book, she stays when he tells her, go, I'm protecting you. And she actually protects him.
Right. So we have the complete reversal. And now they're partners. Like, that makes them partners. They've both saved each other's lives. They're now equally powerful, even though she still doesn't quite understand how her powers work.
But that is the end of the book. They're going on that mission. He is literally came up with the plan of, okay, we're literally gonna time travel to a place where you can learn how to be a badass at magic.
Right. And he's like, I want this. Like, bring it on. He is not intimidated by that. He is like, yes, let's do it. Which, again, fabulous. And someone who is possessive and controlling would never do that.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is where that relationship could be detrimental, is if there's also that controlling aspect of it.
So red flags and green flags all around.
Yep. No, it's so
what? But also green flags.
Red light, green light, without the weird, creepy, spinny head.
And the eyes that he gets when he goes into vampire mode in the television show.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna watch season 2 and season 3 because I want to see how they're gonna do it.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I'm very glad that I read the book now because I feel like I understand more about what this world is. Yeah. I mean, wrapping up, I think we pretty much are landing on this book was fabulous and this show was kind of like it's fine.
I mean, we barely talked about the show.
Were I entertained by the show? Mostly.
There were
parts. For Bridgerton? Yes.
Yes, Bridgerton.
But everybody prefers Bridgerton right now, so that's totally, it's a genius show, people. Go watch it.
Oh, it's a good show.
Yeah. Do you have any final comments for the book or the movie or the show?
My final comment is I'm definitely like moving on to the second book because I want to see where it goes. I do. I'm invested now.
Me too.
And also, I do want to see. I do want to see the other seasons because scrolling through trying to find first season episodes, they mentioned stuff about Sarah, the crazy red-haired witchy aunt, who I just love the way she was read in the book. I love the character when we encountered her in the TV show, and I'm like, I like her. I want to see more of her.
Oh. Yeah, no, I love the ants too. There's a lot of strong female characters in this book, and they are mostly well portrayed in the show. It's just that our lead protagonist is so weak that I feel like it fuzzies everything else up.
In the TV show?
In the TV show, yeah. In the book, there's a ton of strong female protagonists. Like, it's a great little novel. It's a very balanced cast, and it's a big novel. It's actually pretty long. I think this is other than Dune, I think this is the longest book we've read on this show.
But I enjoyed it. I never was like, okay, I put it on like 1.5 times speed just because it's so long, but I didn't skip anything. I never felt like I needed to skip through something because I'm like, interesting.
Mm-hmm. So overall, Absolutely recommended. Let us know what you think of both of them. And okay, the romance novels that I'm going to suggest.
Yes, give them to me. Give them to me. Wait, I've got to pull up my notes. I'm so excited for this. Okay, give me. Yes.
Okay, so Katie Robert. She has a novel. Her most polished novel that I have read is Neon Gods, and it has a. Have you read it?
No, but it sounds awesome.
Okay, it is about. It's about Persephone and Hades. It is a modern retelling of Persephone and Hades. It does have a strong BDSM and kink like overtone. So if you are not into that kind of thing, it gets kind of intense. But it's very about consent, and it's very, it's a good adventure, and it's very spicy. Don't let your mommy read it. No, just it is definitely a lot more onto the smutty side of things than the romance side of things. So, but it's super fun. And she also has a whole series of books that is about Disney villains. And it sounds like it shouldn't work, but it does. They're not as
Are we talking romance novels? Like, is there Disney villain smut?
Yes. The first one is Jasmine and Jafar.
Oh, I would read that. No. I mean, her in the red outfit.
Yep. I'm trying to remember what Katie Roberts. The first book is called Desperate Measures. Anyway, those are my recommendations that I definitely did not give you and are not safe for work, so do not read them at work.
No. Can I just say that those last ones had to be started on either Wattpad or Archive of Our Own? Fanfiction.net is something like that. Those were not originally like sent to.
I don't know. Anyway, Neon Gods, love it. So yeah, that is my follow-up if you want to go deeper into the romance thing.
Oh yeah. My introduction to romance novels was Apple Books. I don't know if you have that app, but they have a wide array of free romance novels that are werewolf and just pretty much any sort of dukedom, marquess, princess, lord, lady. There's literally a book for every single title of nobility. It's possible, and they all look the same with like the Fabio and the bodice and everything, and it's wide array. They're all awful, but also awesome. When you are in that cheesy romance novel move, dime store free Apple Books.
Anyway, if you got it this far in our show, you've gotten more than you bargained for, I think.
Oh, yes.
We're going to be a little more literary next time. We're doing Death on the Nile. So the movie just came out and it is streaming a bunch of places. So it's super easy to watch. And then, the book is an original mystery by Agatha Christie, who literally was one of the pioneers of that genre as we know it today. So yeah, I'm kind of excited to talk about this just because of the place in history that book has. I'm really interested to see a modern adaptation of this book that has such strong Victorian sensibilities. It's going to be interesting.
And I'm actually going to watch the movie first before I read the book.
All right. We'll hold you to that. And then,
if I don't, then I owe you $5.
All right. Well, for everyone else, if you guys are around on Tuesday next week, I am streaming with the Weldport Weirdos, the Uncanny Pros. We have our story that's ongoing. It is a gothic mystery story, and we just got through some very traumatic situations, and I think we just time traveled back into the Middle Ages. So,
how did I miss last week? Damn it! I would have loved that.
All on our Twitch channel if you want to watch it. And yeah, so join us on Tuesday, and then we will do Read, Watch, Vent again last Thursday of the month, 8 p.m. Mountain Time. We'll see you guys there. So thanks so much for watching. We'll see you. Like and subscribe if you haven't.